My name is Dr. Ishan. I am actually teaching here in Azman Hashim International Business School in Malaysia. And today I will be taking a topic which is like a very short presentation, not a very detailed presentation as such. So I thought given the scenario now, there's no argument about COVID-19 being affecting all the different sectors. Okay. And one of the major sectors which is actually affected by this COVID-19 is the tourism sector. And we need to understand what is the way forward for the tourism sector and what are the new things which we can expect after the COVID-19 era. So my presentation titled Way Forward for Tourism Sector Post COVID-19 Era will be focusing on that. And I will also take this opportunity to brief something about our research circle, our vision, what are the things we have planned and what are the things we are going to do. So hope this few minutes, what I'm going to speak will be very useful for the audience, and also I can add value to the conference. So now if you see the impact of tourism, what has happened, the COVID-19 has impacted the tourism. If you just go by the statistics, you can see that the pandemic is expected to set the tourism sector back to $1 trillion. So this is a huge thing and a big thing which is happened and which is expected to happen, because tourism sector is a major sector for most of the nations which are depending on the tourism. Why? Because it contributes to the job, it contributes to the foreign exchange, it contributes to their hospitality industry, so everything. So this is not good news for the tourism industry based on what are the things projected for the next few years. However, we don't have any other option, or we cannot avoid this, because considering the situation, tourism cannot come back on track. So if you see how the COVID-19 has crushed the whole international tourism, you can see how much of a decline is there. You can see in Africa, almost 69% of the tourism is decline. Similarly, all over the world, around 72% of the total tourism is decline. So what does this mean? This means that overall, it is a big problem for almost each and every countries. So this is just a small statistics which supports. I think we don't need a statistics as of now to get convinced that COVID-19 has affected the tourism. But what this statistic shows is how big the problem is. So now let's see what are the main things which actually is the core for rebuilding the tourism sector. So first thing what we need to do is restoring the travelers' confidence. Now, one of the main thing which is associated with the tourism sector is the confidence of the people to travel in to a particular country or a particular tourism destination. However, this particular tourism sector, when you see, this is not only due to the pandemic. If there is a country which is having some issues with terrorism or some issue with the government, the travelers are not willing to travel there. Why we go to other country? If you see in India itself, right, Kashmir is one of the top tourism, or people like to go there. It is one of the very good place for tourism, but due to the given condition, there's not much confidence of the travelers to travel to that area. So the same effect this COVID has done. So how the government and how the people can instill the confidence in travels makes a big part for the rebuilding exercise after COVID-19. Second thing is supporting tourism business to adapt and survive. So how will the tourism business will adapt to the new norms? Because we all know the norms have changed, the hygiene factors, the way the travels have been is doing, the social distancing, and way the payments and everything is changed now, the way we travel. So how the tourism business can adapt to this changing scenario? Third is promoting domestic tourism. Now, one thing good has happened because of this COVID is people are looking more inward. So they are seeing how they can promote their domestic tourism. So people, although they cannot travel abroad, they are looking at places how they can travel domestically. I'll give you an example. Recently in Malaysia itself, the international travel is not yet open on full swing, but they just opened for a brief period. Now it is locked down again, brief period, the domestic travels. And all flights were full for the domestic travel. So many people flocking to certain international tourism, I mean the destinations like Langkawi and other places. So next is how providing clear information to the travels and business and limiting uncertainties. See, right now, if you see the simple example, if you have to travel to any country, everybody is confused, whether the flights are there, whether you're allowed to travel, whether you will get the visa easily, all this confusion is there. So this has to be removed, and there should be less of confusion to the travelers. Next, evolving response measures to maintain capacity in the sector and risk gaps in the support. So how do you develop the capacity of the sector? This is mainly related to the digital technology, which I'll be talking about in the next slide as well. So how equipped are you to handle this whole scenario where you have the infrastructure, the capacity to meet the demands of the customers? Okay. Finally, strengthening the cooperations between the countries. Now, the perfect example of this is you can see the vaccine game going on everywhere, right? Right now, you have certain, like recently, if you see the European Union, they refuse to accept the Covishield vaccination from India. So there was a lot of hue and cry, but finally, I think they changed their stance. But still, you have Covaxin not approved. So similarly, they have in Malaysia, now the EU is saying that the AstraZeneca vaccination is given in Malaysia is not accepted in EU. So this is all the game going on between the countries. So now it is a time to give up all these political goals and then come together, if at least for the tourism sector, so that we don't play these games, so that there's a cooperation between countries to help the tourism sector of both the countries. And next is building a more resilient and sustainable tourism. So how does this happen? You are ready and prepared for any of these shocks that might be due to a political situation, a pandemic situation. So if you have the protocols and systems which is more resilient, I think this is very important for rebuilding. Why these points are very important for the tourism sector? Because this is the one sector which is affected very badly by the COVID-19 and goes with a lot of sentiments among the people. And this is a sector which provides a lot of jobs to a lot of people in different countries. And this is the sector which needs to thrive if the country or the world has to come back to the previous. So what are the way forward if I have to jot down? First is there should be an integrated tourism policy between governments. So this is very important to have a standard set policy for the tourism. So, for example, even me, recently the big confusion is, even if we have to visit India, we don't know whether now the citizens of India are allowed, what is the quarantine period, what is the new norms, whether you're allowed to take your family, whether there is restriction for tourism travel, all these things. So there should be an integrated policy for tourism which can handle such situations, so that the confidence among the travelers increases and they're clear about it. Second is collaborative system across borders. As I highlighted in the previous slide, across borders, there should be a collaborative effort to support each other. Okay, so if you don't support each other in the country, either or the one or the other will lose. In the overall, if you summarize, there is a big loss for uh, all the countries, not only one specific country. Next is sector-specific support are needed. So you can see a lot of stimulus packages, all these packages being released. But what we need now is, although tourism also gets a certain package, but certain tourism has to be created looked into more into detail and given a specific package for the tourism sector itself. Finally, this is one of the very important thing which can change the whole landscape of the tourism sector. That is the digital tourism as a future of travel. So what is this digital tourism? Now, till now, we have seen we understand that it is not like you visiting physically to a certain place is a different experience as compared to the virtual visit or the virtual reality. But what we need to do is now the whole sector has to change. They have to promote this digital tourism. So how, if I may give you an example, how does it start? Like, for example, you are planning to go for a certain country for a visit. So whenever you're planning such a thing, so what you need to do is you should research. So your digital technology, or if you have the search in your mobile, you have to provide all the required information so that your customers can visit. Second is giving them an experience of real life experience by using the higher end of virtual reality, augmented reality, so that they can see the place as it is real, so that they create an intention of travel. So after you do that, the next thing is the transport that is related to your flights, your taxis, how you can support the digital innovations in this area. Like, maybe you have the real-time data on the flight routines, flight schedules. All these are things already there, but now they need to enhance so that the customer can access it more easily. And finally, the destination. Once you go to the destination, how you're going to have the information on your fingertips so that it becomes more easy for you to explore the new things. So all these will contribute for the sector to get a new look and come back to normal as compared to what it is right now. Because this digital tourism is one sector which will boom in the next few years, because there are people like who will like, especially a statistic shows that in the age group people, this digital tourism has gained importance, because certain time they cannot travel. So what they do is they try to get the real life experience through this virtual tourism or augmented tourism. So these are the things which is the way forward for the tourism sector. So this is the overall
Okay,
things I
so once
wanted to
again, good
discuss. But
afternoon.
I also would like to take
So
a small opportunity.
it's my honor and privilege for me for being invited for this international conference. So my topic is about the culture in research. So just like we have mentioned by different keynote speakers, during the pandemic crisis, a lot of educators and scholars felt devastated because they think that they cannot continue with academic or scholarly work. The good thing with the research publication and the submission continues to grow eventually because this leads to researchers and scholars to write on topics relating to COVID-19 pandemic. So a lot of researchers and scholars open its door in research and development, and uh, and it's just a pandemic we're facing right now, and we need to think or innovate a new strategy in order to survive in this battlefield. So during the lockdown, they present some significant challenges for researchers, and it also gave some significant opportunities for researchers. The first involves asking how resilient organizational cultures are actually are. There are groups of research institutions that participate in this type of situation, which is number one, the Institute of Economic Development and Social Researches and other international research groups, just like Research Circle, that gives opportunity for scholars and to facilitate its call for paper or webinars that can give an alternative mode of presentation. Also, journal publications waive the article processing fee to give way to those scholars or writers who are greatly affected with the pandemic situation. So setting aside the future of universities and other research institutions, COVID has posed more immediate challenges for research colleagues around the world. So researchers have quickly uh, quickly reoriented about their studies to meet the public health needs. And then the implementation of the new research culture using technology-based platforms like ResearchGate and Google Scholar boost the emotions of the scholars and writers to continue with their endeavor and come up with a good publishable paper that is globally readable and can be cited as many as the researchers have read it. So other publication companies offers a pre-publication and even researcher have read it and can also be used for conferences for free. So generally, researchers see the way that the scientists and scholars have cooperated as a huge positive in the situation or in the pandemic situation. But a lot of scientists welcome the way the pandemic has already changed the way the community by the transitioning to a completely new culture of doing research and development. So as a researcher by heart, this will promote and introduce the new methods in conducting research like qualitative, quantitative, and mixed method research design locally or globally. So since the beginning of lockdown, research institutions has recorded an explosive growth of data during COVID-19 pandemic, which resulted to more than 19,250 publications, 250 datasets, and even 270 patents related to research. So these have fed into more than 200 policy documents. So finally, as a speaker and as a research advocate, I would also like to conclude that there's a big opportunity in research and development in this time of pandemic. So stay at home and do collaborative
Good morning,
research
everyone.
that
Can
can
you
be
hear me?
cited and published in a reputable journal, which can be
Hello,
indexed
good
in
morning,
the
everyone.
Directory of Open Access Journals, DOAJ,
Okay.
Web of
So,
Science,
thank you
Science
to the
Citation
organizer of
Index,
Virtual
and
International
other higher impact
Multidisciplinary
factor for
Conference
indexing
on Current Research Trends,
databases. So
or
that's all for now. Thank you for
IMCCRT
the opportunity.
2020, which will be held today until tomorrow, actually until the 21st of September. So, thank you for inviting me in as one of the plenary speakers of this conference. So, with my other speakers, we hope to enjoy the day. And for those who are listening and watching to us through YouTube Live and Facebook Live, thank you for coming over. I hope we could share some insights with you on the current trends on research, particularly the presentations of our presenters for the duration of 3 days. So for today, I'll be sharing to you some insights on the role of action research in developing teachers' competencies in emerging paradigms or emerging educational paradigms, particularly in the context of the Philippines. And I hope we could also benchmark and share these insights to our other brothers and sisters in Asia and the world. So again, I am Mr. Leonilo Capolso. I am the president of Beyond Books Publication. I am also a master teacher of San Matias National High School, School Division Office of Pampanga in the Philippines under the Department of Education. So for today, we're going to explain the important concepts and principles of action research in relation to education, particularly today in the new normal of education and even in other fields of specifications. We will also enumerate certain themes of action research in relation to education and its legal basis. And let's try to see how are we going to incorporate all these themes as we try to discuss different topics and as we continue to conduct action researches to enhance educational system not only in the Philippines but also in the world. And if time provides, we will be discussing the impact of action research to teaching and learning environment, since this conference is a multidisciplinary conference. As for my end, I'll be focusing more on education and maybe touching on other fields along the way. And let's try to identify future directions of action research in the emerging education. So there is a saying which says, altrox melior dolcissima veritas mendacis, or the bitter truth is better than the sweetest lies. So as we experience the pandemia across the world, truth is really very important as to help us prepare uh, sorry, our educational system and even our health system in trying to protect ourselves from the effects of COVID-19. Okay, so what is action research? But before that, let's try to have a review of a definition of research according to Clark and Clark. So research is a careful and systematic objective investigation conducted to obtain valid facts, draw conclusions, and establish principles regarding an identifiable problem in some fields of knowledge. I think this is the very reason why we are having this conference. Our presenters, researchers across the country and across the globe will be showing to us their solutions to problems they identify that will enhance humankind, that will enhance our way of living. But this is based on an objective investigation based on the facts gathered in order to solve problems of the world, may it be in education, in health, in engineering, and other fields of human existence. So action research, according to Levin in 1944, is the integration of action, which is implementing a plan, with research, which is developing an understanding of the effectiveness of this implementation. So why we are doing this conference? We are doing this conference in order for us to find solutions to the different problems we are all facing because of COVID-19. For us academicians, we are trying to identify different mechanisms that would address the needs of educational gaps in the Philippines, in Asia, and even in the world. So we are trying to integrate this action with this problem so that at the end, we're going to have a better solution to ensure quality, reliable, and responsive education to our learners. So according to Kurt Levin, the author of Action Research, no research without action and no action without research. So research without action is nonsense if you are trying to respond a particular problem. I think this is the important role of action research in education and in other fields. So it is a systematic inquiry done by teachers or other individuals in an educational setting and maybe in other fields to gather information about and subsequently improve the way the particular educational setting operates, how they teach, and how well their students learn. Particularly, for example, in the Philippines, as we open the school year this October 5, the Department of Education had laid down the learning continuity plan. This actually encompasses the different modalities that will be adopted of all schools in the Philippines, may it be face-to-face, online, blended learning. And at the moment, there are mechanisms being implemented in different regional office and division offices in trying to capacitate teachers in order to become responsive to the health, to the need of the students, and even to the needs of the parents who are now facilitators of learning. And of course, action research would be very important to different uh, agencies in the government, may not only be in the Philippines, but other government for that matter. Because this data that they will gather through research will be very important in responding to the needs of the different fields. According to Stephen Corey, it is the process by which practitioners attempt to study their problems scientifically in order to guide, correct, and evaluate their decision and actions. As of the moment, the health department or the health agencies had been trying to perfect their research on the right vaccine that will be adopted by different countries in order to stop the pandemic. Business industries had been implementing different mechanisms to sustain the financial status of the government in order to maintain the equilibrium. So as leaders of the government and different agencies, we really have to be very upright. We have to be very reflective as to the kind of modality we will be adopting, because that would determine what kind of output we will be having. So as much as we try to focus on productivity, we also would like to give importance on the health priorities of our workers, of our employees. So therefore, these research outputs, this research discoveries will actually instruct and enlighten leaders and decision makers in order to maintain the common good of society, of the academe, and even of the world. So action research basically follow four cycle, okay, or the four important steps, although other authors have different steps, no. So it starts with planning, then acting, observing, and reflecting. So actually others would go a little bit backward. They start with reflecting. So as professionals, as experts of our field, regardless of our discipline, action research starts with the problem. So at the moment in education, for example, what are the common problems that we initially encounter? Some parents are having a hard time doing facilitating learning at home without the help of the teachers. Now, teachers from their end also encounter different challenges as to assessment, monitoring, and feedbacking with the competencies expected of the students. The local government officials are also very concerned as to protect the health and to see to it that other educational needs are being addressed because of this situation. So basically, all these problems enables the researcher to plan what do I need to do in order to respond to this problem. So after identifying the problem, the researcher now develops a plan that would try to address, that will serve as the intervention to the problem. So after planning, the researcher has to put it into action. So putting action means you're going to trial, to collect data, to gather information through your questioning, may it be quantitative or qualitatively. And after gathering of data, the researcher then observe, try to analyze the results. So analyzing, then trying to report and share. And this is the purpose why we have the International Multidisciplinary Conference on Current Trends of Research, because we're going to present the findings of our research to instruct and to empower decision makers in different fields. And from there, we will see if actually the problems are addressed. If not, and then that actually calls us to continue the cycle. That is why it is called the cycle. So if the problems are not properly addressed, then the researcher also needs to think another possible solution until the problem is properly addressed. So why action research is important according to John Creswell? So action research, just like other research, is important because it helps researchers and experts to encourage change in school and in other fields and other institutions. It is also important to foster democratic approach to education. It empowers individual to project collaboration. Sometimes there are things in in the academia and in other fields that can properly address through collaboration. No, one of the important thing maybe that we have to consider through this online mechanism that we have is the importance of collaborating with people within our area and even outside the country. So thank you for the organizer of this conference, because it also enables us to collaborate with other experts in the different field. It also positions teachers and other practitioners as learners who seek to narrow the gap between practice and their vision of education. So if I am the Department of Education Secretary, the results of research were enabled me to address the needs of the learners, of the parents, and other stakeholders. At the moment, there is already some talks within the educational circle to 1 minute. I'm running out of battery. Um, to look into the assessment mechanism, no, because of the distance learning, it's the teachers, the school is having a hard time trying to assess how much the students are learning. So the Department of Education is trying to identify possible means of trying to respond to these needs. Let me fix this first because I'm running out of battery. Okay, thank you. So, and also to encourage educators to reflect on their practices. So if you are a teacher who'd been there for a long time, you have to say, what's the difference between the way I handle my class before and the way I handle my class now? How should I address to the challenges encountered by my students? Or if I am from the field of business, if for example the business is going down, as executives you must be able to identify mechanisms that would at least sustain the status quo, or at least help your company, boost your company in responding also to the needs of your clients and also of your employees. Promotes a process of testing new ideas. Now, there are different philosophies, there are different pedagogies and strategies coming out because of COVID-19. And as educators, as experts in the fields, we must be able to identify, adapt, uh, best practices of other countries, of other institutions in order to respond to the needs of our constituents. That is why reflection is very important to decision makers, because later on we would realize that each problem deserves a particular solution. We cannot simply adapt without trying to contextualize, because our constituents, for example, if you are the principal, your students' experiences is different from the experiences of students in other countries. So you must be able to contextualize the plan or even the design you want to implement. So action research in the Philippine K-12 education is actually uh, rooted in the Republic Act 9155 on the basic educational reforms. According to this law, that all reforms in education that will be adopted by the school, by the division, by the agency, should be a byproduct of research. That is why the learning continuity plan in the basic education in the Philippines is actually drawn from the previous studies in the field. So what the department did is to gather this basic information from the grassroots, sit down together with different stockholders or stakeholders, and then they were able to draw out this learning continuity plan that addressed the different needs of learners. That is why the different modalities was developed. The Department of Education Order number 39 series of 2016, which is the adoption of basic education research agenda, try to identify the different topics and themes that can be adopted by school leaders in trying to respond to the needs in education. The regional office of Central Luzon in 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 the Philippines, we also have reformulated regional research agenda, which are actually amended by the new memorandum, which tries to adapt this. And this actually covers the different mechanisms of conducting research and the different topics that will be addressed. And normally, it responds to the need and the demand of the time. For today, the focus of research is on the learning continuity plan, no, on the assessment, evaluation, and feedbacking. So basic education agenda is articulated to provide guidance to school division offices and other stakeholders to conduct education or conduct of education research. So this is just a blueprint for educational leaders as to how they are going to address action research. Now, because I am running out of time, I will gradually present to you how the themes were actually chosen. So if you're a principal, if you're a teacher, action research to be conducted should be at least within the theme. And Department Order number 39 series of 2016 identified four important themes. And this is teaching and learning. As of the moment is the focus of the learning continuity plan, how students will be taught, how they will be assessed, what is the role of the parents, of the local government officials. Child protection, okay? Human resource and development, and governance. So these are the four important themes that research should be conducted in the field of education. Of course, there are other three cross-cutting themes on gender and development, disaster risk reduction and management, and inclusive education, because we are lacking uh, of time. I'll be skipping this part, no. Now I'll be going to areas for future research, or before that, the four main researchers' goals to pursue during this online mechanism. So for those who are doing online learning, online studies, online pedagogies, there are four important possible goal that we should focus on. One is on enhancing learner engagement. Research proves that learning modality is sometimes saturating. It's not totally sustainable. That is why we try to determine the number of hours as being provided now by the Department of Education, and I hope by other agency. So as teachers, we should we should try to enhance the learning engagement in our modalities. So what are the different strategies we would adopt? How to promote effective facilitation? There were parents who had been complaining about the difficulty in trying to facilitate instruction without the help of parents or of teachers. So as researchers, we should identify ways to promote effective facilitation of our different modalities. Third is developing assessment technique. If we used to have, for example, a periodical exam or quarter exam, using multiple choice, what would be the best assessment mechanism that we can adopt? We can also look into that. And designing faculty development. In the Department of Education in the Philippines, and I think this is true also to other schools division offices, including the division office of Pampanga, teachers are now engaged into learning delivery modalities where teachers are actually equipped on different mechanisms, different assessment skills, and other help that the teachers need as we prepare to welcome our students come October 5. So to end, there are four areas for future research. One is to establish best practices for online teaching strategy. So we could actually benchmark with other schools, with other countries on the best way to handle online teaching strategies. Also, in the Philippines, we have four modalities, and um, most of the places in the country are actually into distance learning, may it be online or distant or digital modality. To improve upon the identification of characteristics that are necessary for adolescents to be successful in online learning. So we must be able to identify these characteristics that we need in order to help young learners. How virtual school and brick and mortar school personnel can encourage more interaction. So because engagement is very important, we should also look into this. Okay, so what are mechanisms that we can do to improve engagement and interaction between students and teachers and even the parents at home and other local government officials, and examine the quality of student learning experience through assessment mechanism. So to end my presentation, okay, we have to realize that using technology in the new normal to increase efficiency in areas which has the capacity to do so is very essential, while empowering learners and other communities to create positive learning environment at home or virtually in which our students can grow holistically. This is according to Ching in 2020. See, the new normal should be adapted, should be embraced, but should not sacrifice the quality of education, but continue to provide equal opportunities, especially to the most marginalized and vulnerable sectors of society. We should also remember that regardless of the modality we are adopting, that there is no one-size-fits-all solution. It's always be based on our context, on the needs of our learners, of our clientele. Okay? And particularly the whole community. As they said, that it takes the whole village to educate a child. So everybody has an important role to play. So to end, let me quote a saying from Saint Francis of Assisi. He said that because of this pandemic, for example, we could just contextualize by starting our task by doing what is necessary. So we should prioritize what do we really need at the moment. And then by doing that, we do what is possible. So gradually, we are doing what are possible. And suddenly, we are doing the impossible. As long as it is clear for us what is our role in what we are doing. So with that, thank you very much for inviting me. If you have some questions later on, you could approach me through my email address and my WhatsApp number 0933-556-4886. So once again, good morning. In the Philippines, it's now 10 minutes before 10 o'clock.
Thank you so
So
much.
good morning, everyone. Good morning,
So
Teacher. Good morning,
basically today my discussion on the supply chain and its application in the various industries, particularly manufacturing and service industry. First of all, as we are discussing supply chain, it is very new arena in the area of the management and as well as engineering. So I like to give the clear idea about supply chain management. So first of all, what is basic supply chain? If you like to start a basic supply chain, then you have to start from here. I always mention when I deliver the keynote speech in the different international conferences, that why you are delivering the keynote speech. Our main target is that our prospective researchers, our main audience is that those who will do the further research. So that is our keynote speech will be helpful, will be more effective for the prospective researchers so that they can think how they will conduct the future research. So today I'll try to give them some clear idea. If anybody interested to pursue their higher studies or to pursue the further research of supply chain management, then how they could start. First of all, we need the basic supply chain. There are basically three entities. So when you think of any supply chain, we have to answer the three basic entities. The first of all, the raw materials, finished product. Then secondly, we need the supplier and customer. Raw materials come from the supplier end, and finished product will be delivered to the customer. So that means that raw materials, finished product, they have a connectivity with the supplier and customer. Flow of goods for manufacturing industry. Flow of service for the service industry. Flow of information and flow of fund. Okay, I'll come back to this one later on. So now, if you ask me what is the supply chain, I would say this is the one chain that will start from supplier and that will finish with the customer. So that is our ultimate target, the supply chain that will start from the supplier and finish with the customer. And now come the next question, how will manage this supply chain? That is our discussion as well today. So whatever you are thinking, supply chain for any industry, manufacturing, service industry, you have to answer the three basic entities. Look very carefully. This is the basic supply chain for the manufacturing industry. So say, this is one example. What you said that raw materials come from supplier end. After the processing, finished product will deal with the customer end. Flow of goods from supplier to customer. If it is the flow of service for service industry, as we are talking about the manufacturing industry, the flow of goods from supplier to customer. Flow of information. Basically, we are talking about that integrated information. We are talking about integrated information. During the pandemic time, COVID-19, this issue was a very vital issue. That how we could ensure that integrated information among all stakeholders, from supplier to customer. And then flow of money, flow of funds. Definitely, without the flow of money, you cannot continue this kind of supply chain. So now you notice that there is another three parties, another three particular parties are here, the manufacturer, distributor, retailer. It depends whether it will be available or not. It depends on the size of the organization, size of the business, and what type of business you're doing. Say, suppose a new industry, any kind of new industry, you need the factory. So you need the manufacturer only. but you no need to think about the distributor, retailer, because the customer, they can come to the factory, they can collect the product because it's a small size of the production. In that case, you change it with supplier, manufacturer, and customer. Suppose if you are going for the medium production, medium level production, so you are producing that 5,000 products. In that case, you understand you need the factory, manufacturer, then you need the retailer. The retailer is the outlet where the customer will come and they'll collect the product. In that case, your supply chain will be supplier, manufacturer, retailer, customer. And finally, suppose large scale operation, large scale production. Say you have the 50,000 production. In that case, you understand you have to think about the distribution channel. Definitely that time your supply chain will be supplier, manufacturer, distributor, retailer, and customer. So what I said then, whether the manufacturer, distributor, retailer will be available or not, it depends on the size of the business and the type of the organization. Now let us come to our basic supply chain for the service industry. What I said earlier, let us start from there. The supplier, customer must be there. Raw materials come from the supplier end, and after the processing, finished product will deal with the customer end. So I already mentioned this one. Then you have to think. Then you have to think what I said, the flow of service from supplier to the customer. Flow of information. Definitely there will be the flow of information. We call it integrated information. And we like to use the one term, what we call it, the MIS system. Management Information System, integrated information. I think you're familiar with the term, the MRP, ERP. This is a very popular term. This kind of any kind of software. What is the ERP, MRP of the software? Nothing, just integrated information. So that's why you measure flow of information among all stakeholders, from supplier to customer. And finally, the flow of fund, flow of money must be there. You notice the service provider. Basically, this service provider is your service provider. Means if you think that like hospital, then it's hospital. If you think that like university, then it should be the university. Did you notice that there is one special difference with the manufacturing industry and service industry? That is that consumer. You see, in the manufacturing industry, we didn't mention that consumer, but in the service industry, we mentioned clearly the consumer. Basically, consumer is the end customer, end user, final customer, final user. You know that what is the main difference between the manufacturing and service industry? This is the one difference. In terms of the definition, we say manufacturing industry is a profit organization and service industry is a non-profit organization. So how they'll continue the business, service industry? Their main target, if they get the profit, that profit will be utilized for the infrastructure development. That profit will be utilized for the infrastructure development. So what I mentioned here clearly, you have to look very carefully. Infrastructure development. Say in the hospital, there's a profit. They never say that our main target to get the profit. They always try to say, the hospital, their main target to contribute to the society. In the university, they never say that their target to get the profit. They have to say their target, how they could add the values to the society. So this is on what I said, the consumer, the society. So when you think the service industry, you have to remember your ultimate consumer, that means the ultimate customer is the society. How you could add the values to the society. Even if they get the profit, that profit must be utilized for the infrastructure development. That profit must be utilized for the infrastructure development. So what I mentioned here, look very carefully, that when you think the supply chain manager for the service industry, then you have to remember there will be the consumer, the society will be there. And now comes the question, how you can apply this supply chain model. Basically, you can apply the supply chain model in the different industries, like manufacturing industry, like the most popular example is that suppose ready-made garments industry, textile industry, poultry industry, fishing industry, vegetable industry. Today, I'll show you some example. And you can apply supply chain for the service industry, like education, supply chain, hospital, tourism, banking, and something like that. So it means that you can apply that supply chain management concept, whatever industry, manufacturing and service industry, both industry you can apply. You know that when you're planning to apply the supply chain, that you have to think there are some few facilities and some few functional activities. So let us see the sequence of organization, their facilities, their functional activity that are involved in producing, delivering product or service. So we have to think the few facilities, we have to think the few functional activities that should be available in the supply chain. So let's see what kind of facilities. Warehouse. Basically, warehouse is a storage. You can say the warehouse or inventory. So warehouse and or inventory must be available. There's a storage. This storage could be the like raw material storage. This storage could be the like the finished product storage. This storage could be the like the work in progress products. We need the factory. I think I already discussed earlier factory. Factories means there will be the processing center.
Sir, I guess, sir, we are not able to hear you. Hello?
Cannot hear.
Yes, yes, yes. Hello? I guess we will wait for him. He might get disconnected due to the bad network.
I think, Professor, the connection was disconnected due to internet.
I was, yeah. And now it's okay?
Yeah, now we can hear. You can start over again.
Yeah. Sorry for the inconvenience. And nowadays we are facing this problem.
Now it's okay, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, so what I said that when you think about the facilities, that we have to think there's some few facilities, the warehouse, what I said earlier. And the secondly, that factory. When you think about the factory, you have to think the like processing center. We have to think about the distribution center. I think I already mentioned distributor. Basically, the distribution channel will be there. So when you're thinking about the large scale of production, you have to need the distribution channel. There will be maybe one distribution center. They're responsible for the 10 outlet, 10 retailer. So that is very important that we have to think in that way, whether we have the distribution center or not. So that if you have a distribution center, then you can think how you can expand the business in the near future. Retail outlet, I already mentioned, this is the retailer, this outlet, where the customer will come and they'll receive the product. And finally, the offices, but definitely is all our offices. Whatever say that like the supplier and
Excuse me,
we need that one office,
Excuse
factory.
me, Professor.
Yes.
Sorry to disturb you. I think your slides is not shared. Can you share your slide? We can't see your slide.
Okay. Sorry. Can you see the slide now?
Yeah, it's still sharing. It's still, now we can see the slides. Yeah, I think some internet issue is there.
Yeah. No problem. This is the common issue nowadays we are facing, technical difficulty.
Yeah. It's okay. Carry on, Professor.
No problem. Thank you. Sorry for the inconvenience.
It's okay.
So what I said that when you're thinking the facilities in the supply chain, then you have to think these facilities: warehouse, factory, processing center, distribution center, retail outlet, and offices. Okay. So what I mentioned earlier, you have to see this one, that we have to ensure these few facilities when you are planning to design the supply chain for the manufacturing and service industry. Now let's move to the next one. What type of functional activities are there? So when you design the supply chain, we have to think a few other functions and activities. Forecasting. You're doing your own business, whatever the manufacturing and service, and you have to think the forecast. First one. You have to check the supply and demand condition. So you have to do the regularly monitor, you have to do that one. Purchasing, this is a part of the, suppose between the manufacturer and then supply end. We call it the procurement. So you have to ensure these procurement activities, how you can do the purchase. Inventory management. We have to think about the inventory. I already mentioned the warehouse or inventory, how you can manage it. Information management, earlier I mentioned the MI system, management information system. You have to ensure how you could do this one, integrated information. Quality assurance, definitely quality assurance is a major issue. Quality assurance is a major issue. You have to ensure the quality everywhere and how you could manage it. This is another challenge. Scheduling, oh, this is very important. On-time production, on-time delivery, on-time receiving the product. We have to ensure that lead time, you have to ensure the reorder point, you have to ensure placing the order, and you have to ensure that on time the invoice sharing, on time the invoice receiving, product receiving, something like this. It's very important when you design any successful supply chain, you have to ensure the scheduling, production, delivery. Finally, you have to think the customer service. Customer service is another issue. You have to remember the customer service, that whether your customer will be happy or not, because you remember that your ultimate target. What is the ultimate target? Your ultimate target, the customer. Your ultimate target, the customer, or the customer is satisfied or not. If the customer is satisfied, then you can work on that. If it's not, customer is not satisfied, then no problem. You cannot continue your business anymore. So customer satisfaction is one of the issue. So you have to ensure that whatever you do, you are producing quality outcomes and whatever you do, but they have to ensure that the customer, they're satisfied, they can reach their target level, they can get their products on time, something like that. Okay, so this kind of functions and activities and this kind of facility must be available when you design that any supply chain. Now come to the next one, this is evolution timeline of supply chain management. I don't want to talk too much about this one, it's very popular nowadays, so you have to understand this one. Basically, supply chain management, if you ask anyone, what is supply chain management? Somebody tells logistic management, somebody tells the inventory management, somebody tells the procurement management, somebody distribution management, somebody they will manage the transportation, somebody will manage the materials for. Still, it is not clear to the audiences that how you can describe the supply chain management. Supply chain management, they started their journey by the name of the logistic management. By the name of the logistic management. So this is a very important key point, that there are earlier their form was the logistic management. It's around the 1950s when they initiated the logistic concept. It has launched the supply chain management concept by the name of the logistic management in the defense military people. They were the first initiator for this kind of concept. They are working for the weapons. They're working on this kind of animation, how they'll transfer the one country to the other country, how they have to ensure the materials flow, inventory, other something. Then around the 1970s, the logistic management concept was matured. 1970s, and then 1980s, initiated supply chain management concept. 1980s. That is the starting point, officially starting point of supply chain management. If you compare now to 2020, supply chain management started the journey in 1980s, only 40 years. So that is a very new in the area of the management area or engineering branch, supply chain management. And that's why I said that if the young scholar, young researchers, you can do more research on supply chain management as it is a new branch. And then officially after the starting the supply chain management, there are lots of research on the supply chain management in the manufacturing industry. And most of the research is the materials flow. And then supply chain management, they started their journey in 1985 in the service industry. Supply chain management, they started their journey in 1985 in the service industry. There is another initiative by the Professor Farney, developed the one model, National Health Service for the service industry. So that service industry supply chain management is quite new, and they started their journey around 1985, that is 25 years before. There is another milestone in the service industry supply chain management. That is that Professor Lau, he developed the one model, education supply chain model, in 2007. But in that model, he used that one case study. So case study could not be the generalized concept. On the other hand, in 2009, the ITESCA model was developed. That is the first empirical study on education supply chain management. And that model was developed 2009. And ITESCA model was developed by myself during my PhD time, I developed this model. So that is another milestone in the supply chain management for the service industry. So you know that if you look very carefully, this evolution timeline, that supply chain management is new, and the supply chain management in the service industry is very new. So maybe this is one kind of opportunity for the prospective researchers, how they could conduct the future research. This is a very basic comparative analysis of supply chain management in different area. You know that about 87% research supply chain management in the manufacturing industry, and around the 13% research supply chain management in the service industry. And that's why we like to focus this issue, given some idea about this one, supply chain management in the service industry. Basically, as it is the keynote speech on the supply chain management, I don't want to discuss many things here, but I just mentioned some key points. There is some example of supply chain management in the manufacturing industry. You see, this is the supply chain management in the ready-made garments industry. This is one example of supply chain management application. This is another application of supply chain management in the fishing industry. This is another example of supply chain management in the textile industry. So that means you can apply the supply chain management. On the other hand, supply chain management in the service industry. So you see the tourism supply chain management. You remember what I said earlier, basic supply chain for hardware for manufacturing service industry, we have to apply that one. So this is a tourism supply chain management. And this is the education supply chain. I like to talk few minutes about the education supply chain, then I like to go for the last part, supply chain management based on the COVID-19. So this is a holistic view of education supply chain. If you look very carefully, education supply chain, there is the input, process, output. Input means the supply input. And we call it the raw materials in the terms of supply chain management. And then the output, we call it the finished product. Finished product as a term of the supply chain management. There are two raw materials, internal external project and students. There are two finished products, graduates and its outputs. So the input, process, and output. And finally, the consumer, the society. So whatever you work on the education supply chain, in ultimate target, how you could contribute to the society. I say there are two inputs, one is the students and the internal research project. There are two outputs, graduates and research outcomes. This is a simplified form of supply chain management for the university. Basically, you see that the supplier, this is the service provider, and then the customer, and finally the consumer. And basically, we divided the supplier, the two segments, education supplier and research suppliers, and the service provider. Basically, in the university, we mentioned there are four main activities. One is education development, education assessment, research development, and research assessment. So what I said, university, there are two important aspects, one is the education and the research. And the education will be divided into two activities, education development, education assessment. Research will develop two segments, research development, research assessment. Without the assessment, we cannot think about the development. So every year you have to ensure the quality, what I said earlier, quality ensure. And the customer divided the two type of customer, education customer and research customer. And finally, the consumer, the society. So what I said earlier, raw materials will come, raw materials will be there as a supply input. And finally, the finished product delivered to the customer end. Okay, so let us provide some example of the education suppliers and research supplier. You know, education supplier, you divided the three segments, like the human suppliers, the supplier of students, or the second one, the fund supplier, money supplier, and finally that non-human suppliers, like the stationery material suppliers, like the IT suppliers, something like that. Research supplier, there are two suppliers. One is that external research suppliers and the internal research project suppliers. There are two types of suppliers. I don't want to talk too much because our discuss on the in brief discussion supply chain management. So we also divided the education customer, research customer. Basically, customer is those who get the benefit. Customer means those who get the benefit. So education customer, basically that you understand the graduates, they will get the benefit, their family members, they'll get the benefit, and then employers, they'll get the benefit by the graduates. A research customer, if the internal research project, that our customer is mean the university will they get the benefit by the research findings. Research findings, research project, research outcomes, that is the research customers. That is the research customer. Research finding, if you see that findings in the thesis, and then if you see that research outcomes, all of this is customers. And you know that there is some external research project, those will be funded by the external body. So definitely you'll like to get the benefit by the findings. So this is the customers. You know that what I said earlier, it is not only our target to produce the output. Our target, we have to ensure that quality output. So when you think that education supply chain, then you have to think that graduates, it is our quality. When you think that like the education supply chain, then you have to think about that quality outcomes. That is our fundamental target, that how you can add the contribution to the society. Your main target, you have to contribute to society, but you have to ensure the quality of it. Okay. Basically, this is the ITSA model, and this model is developed, what I said earlier. This is the integrated tertiary educational supply chain management model. And in this model, basically three parts. Left side, the education supply chain, right side, the research supply chain, and intermediate bodies is the education management. And what I said earlier, our main target, we like to produce that quality is outcome. We like to produce the quality graduates so that you can add the values to the society. So that is a basically ITESA model, integrated tertiary education supply chain management model, we develop for the betterment of the society. Those are interested about this model, I like to request, you can write down the abbreviation at Google, you can get the lots of research publication on that. And based on this model, already PhD already accomplished, and there are a few research projects is going in the different countries in the world. Okay, now come to the point. We are talking about the basically supply chain applications in the different industry. So during the COVID-19 time, we are facing this problem again. At this moment, we are facing supply chain disruption. Basically, that our main problem is that the fragility of the modern supply chain. The fragility of the modern supply chain, and our whole everything is collapsed. Diversified sourcing, digitization, will be a key to building the stronger, smarter supply chain and the lasting recovery. But I said that our modern supply chain already fragile due to the COVID-19. So this is the time how we to reshape our modern supply chain management. You know that pandemic, during the pandemic, COVID-19 has hit global trade and is an investment at an unprecedented speed and scale. Multinational companies faced an initial supply shock, then they noted demand shock, because more and more countries order people to stay at home. And not only that, what I said earlier, there is a fragile supply chain. Government, business, individual consumers suddenly struggle to procure the basic products, procured. You remember the procurement earlier I mentioned. And materials were forced to confront the fragility of the modern supply chain. They have only one supplier. Suddenly suppliers stop. And you know that most of the supplies comes from the China. So too much depend on the China raw materials. So when the China they shut down, this is facing the problem all over the global phenomenon, global business. So the urgent need to design the smarter, stronger, more diversified supply chain as you know now one of the main lessons of this crisis. So this is the way what you think the pandemic has given some opportunity for the supply chain disruption. What I mentioned here, basically when you talk about the disruption is everywhere in the supply chain. Ports to factories, port to factory, the storehouses, delivery channels, with the passing every single day during the COVID-19 time. And you can see this disruption in the transportation, warehouse, suppliers of raw materials, procurement, distribution channels, and so on. Even if you go back to the rural area, even you can see that the rural farm level, where the people are not getting the prices for the production. So if they couldn't get the fair prices, how you can continue the supply chain? If raw materials come from there, so you have to ensure that they have to get at least we have fair prices, but we cannot do this one. So I would like to stop by this one supply chain disruption. So that is one of the key point for our today discussion, that If the audiences, they are interested in future, do the more research on supply chain management, I like to request that let's do some research on supply chain disruption based on the pandemic time. And I believe this pandemic will finish, but this kind of impact of pandemic will be next 10 years. So let's do some research on supply chain management based on the like pandemic time. So we call it supply chain disruption. And maybe you can add more values to the society. And maybe we can apply this on for the near future. And what I said that after the 100 years, when you get again the pandemic, we can that time we have to use this concept. What is the learning we received from this supply chain disruption during this time? So thank you so much. And I think you already noticed that my email address is there. So if you have any further query, I'd like to request you can pass the email to me. Then I'm willing to reply your email. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks a lot for this good keynote presentation. I'm sure it will be benefit to all of us. Now, there is a request to all the participants. Kindly please turn on your videos. So we will have some memories for this great day. So I'm requesting kindly turn on your videos, please. All the participants. We'll have some screenshots here. Yes. It's a request to all, please turn on your videos, please.
During the pandemic time, now we are saying when we deliver the lecture in the online, everyone should turn on the camera. Otherwise, it seems to be that when you are delivering the lecture, it seems
well
we are
said,
delivering the lecture to the statue.
Yes.
I noticed that MD Naim Hossain sir, he was the active. He always turned on his camera.
Yes. Yes. Everyone, please start your cameras.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
It's 35. It's in 35.
So you have done your picture?
Yes. I have that screenshot, sir. It was a power supply video.
Oh no.
There are new few participants come up. Javier Sabir, Alamshir, Tawak. Yeah.
Hello everyone. Unfortunately, due to power failure, the internet, the MC couldn't close the session. So first of all, we on behalf of Research Circle, we thank you all for joining us today, and thanks, Professor, for your keynote. You have always been very supportive for Research Circle, and also the other keynote from Philippines, the Linole. So it was really a good session. So stay with us. All the presenters who have their sessions, group presentations, we have already sent you all the Zoom links, so you all can join in after this break.
Can you
Who have the session
blind?
today and who has a session tomorrow can join us tomorrow. There will be 2 more keynotes tomorrow. So if
Keynote address.
I think we have almost clicked maximum pictures as possible. So I know like during this online session, most of the people will be in their comfort zone. So they may not want to switch on the video. Thanks for everyone. So thanks for everyone for joining us today. Thank you all.
Thank
so
you.
We really appreciate your presence today. Thanks and hope to see you all tomorrow as well. Thank you. So we will be ending this session soon. Thank you.